Hey there, my name is LexC and thank you so much for joining me for the book review of The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. If you are interested in hearing more about this book and my personal experience with it, make sure you stay tuned.
Truth turned me to a savage ever since I stepped in the A. I've been the go-getter, met a few hitters who've been trying to crack me for fame. I let bridges burn off, but I never let my soul go to flames. Never let nobody try to lay me down just to elevate.
I finished this book on December 22nd of 2025. And just to show you the proof, there it is. I signed my name. But I did not finish the last task of this book until 2 days ago. So that was January 25th. As of the date of recording, I'm recording this on January 27th, 2026. I finished the last task 2 days ago. How did I first hear about this book? I first heard about this book when I was listening to a short little clip on TikTok or Instagram where the rapper Doechii was talking about how she read this book and how much it changed her life and how things started to shift and things started to happen. Her career started to progress after she went through this 12-week program of The Artist's Way. And you know how devices are always listening. I started seeing and hearing all different kinds of videos, people taking themselves on artist dates, and they were referencing this book. And so I finally was like, you know what? I'm in a place in my life where creativity and my spark, my passion for music is feeling a little dull, and it feels like it's not how it used to be when I was more hungry and when I first started my journey in music. So why not get to a book like this that is a spiritual path to higher creativity? So let's get into the basics of this book. The full title of this book is The Artist's Way, a spiritual path to higher creativity. This is the 30th anniversary edition, and the author is Julia Cameron. The last copywritten date for this book is 2016, but it was actually copywritten in 1992, 2002, and 2016. I'm going to assume that those are for the different editions of the book. Like I said, this is the 30th anniversary edition. There are 235 pages, not including the introduction, and there's like some question and answers, a Q&A section in the back of the book. 235 readable pages, and it is structured like a 12-week program. So reading directly from the table of contents, there is the preface, the introduction, there is an introduction to the basic principles and the basic tools, and then there is a 12-week recovery system. So it's meant to be done in a 12-week course. Each week is a different recovery. So recovering a sense of safety, identity, power, integrity, possibility, abundance, connection, compassion, self-protection, autonomy, and recovering a sense of faith. Those are the 12 weeks that this book takes you through. So the purpose of this book is strictly for creative recovery. And I'm actually going to read a sentence from the introduction that I think sums up the purpose very well. This is from page 13, XIII. This says, if you are creatively blocked, and I believe all of us are to some extent, it is possible, even probable, that you can learn to create more freely through your willing use of the tools this book provides. I started reading this book in June of 2025, and because this is a 12-week program, I should have finished in October. However, I did not finish until December for a multitude of reasons. One being that I started a new job, so time constraints happened, and mostly though, I really wanted to make sure that everything that was being presented in the book, that I kept up with it, and I actually committed to finishing the exercises that are presented in this book. So this is very much an active kind of read. It's almost like attending a college course, like a crash course in a sense. 12 weeks is 3 months, right? Each week you're working on something, you're answering questions, you're writing an essay, you are pondering things, you are doing some quick little arts and crafts even. The last thing that I finished, the last task, was creating what is called a God jar, and I labeled it God's Got It, and it's where you write down your fears, your dreams, your random thoughts, whatever that you want to hand off to God, right? You write it on a little piece of paper and you drop it in the jar, and you do that throughout the year. So that was the last thing that I did, but that's just one example of how interactive and how involved a lot of the exercises can be. And this book does call for action. So really wanted to make sure I took my time with that, hence why it took me more like 24 weeks to finish this versus the 12 weeks that the book presents. Keep that in mind if you are pondering on starting this book. I also have to say that it did take me some time because there's some laziness and lack of discipline involved in my journey with reading this book. And it does take you through a bit of like an emotional roller coaster. And I say that because this book has you ponder different things, and it has you question why certain things are the way they are. It has you question how you develop certain thoughts, certain mindsets, and it makes you go back to childhood even to trace why your thoughts develop the way they did, why you act the way you do, or if you have certain thoughts that were introduced to you that might not even be your own, that might be a reason for your creative block. All of those things are explored in this book. It is a very easy read. For the most part, it is conversational, but I will say that this book is highly spiritual. The extended title of the book is The Artist's Way, A Spiritual Path to Higher Creativity, which is great for me because I believe in God and I read the Bible, and I'm very much into reading every day and talking to God every day. But for anybody who is not spiritual and who may not believe in God, that's no reason for you to shy away from this book. And she says as much in the introduction. It reads sometimes like a devotional if I had to compare it to anything. So it's mostly conversational, but it very much reads like a devotional or a piece of text that is on the side of enlightenment. If you've ever read something close to that, that's how this book reads a lot of the time. It is overall a really easy read. She does use some big words, and I do have some parts in here where I've actually written the definition on the sides. I like that this book has a little space on each side of the page. So you can see here that the text is in the middle, and then there's like a space on the side for you to write notes if you want to. And so there are different parts in this book where I have things highlighted, I have things written out, and I'm using the sides of the book to, if I have a question about a word, I look it up and then I write it out on the side. So I really like that about this book. As I said earlier, the reason why this book appealed to me personally is because I am a music artist, and I first heard about this book through the music artist Doechii. It appeals to me because I was going through a period of time, and I still might be going through it a little bit, but going through a period of time where creativity and my passion for music has just not been the same, especially from when I first started. And music industry is one of the most difficult industries to deal with. It's not the music and the process of creation that's the problem. It's the industry and everything that we have to do as artists. We have to fight tooth and nail, and we have to track down our money just to make a decent wage that's barely above livable, honestly. And so it's very stressful. And then there are not very nice people. A lot of times there are people who don't have good intentions, especially for women who are in the industry. And all of those things I hadn't realized took a toll on me, and it caused me to shy away from creating because somehow creating became synonymous with I have to deal with certain things if I choose to take this route. And I'm actually going to talk about this thought a little bit more deeply later on in the review when I talk about one of the mindsets that I had to shift out of. But the personal appeal for me was to heal my inner creative and figure out, okay, why do I not feel as passionate about music as I used to? And this book, I can honestly say, helped me to understand myself and helped me to break down those barriers and get rid of those censors, the negative censors, as the book would call it. Get rid of those thoughts that influenced me that are not my own. It didn't come from me. And it's helped me to be more creative and take the pressure off in a sense. So now, how do I want to talk to you about this book? What I would typically do is I would just kind of flip through and share with you my favorite quotes. But because this is not necessarily a normal kind of text, it's more like a textbook and it's more like a class, which means that each week presents some kind of task that has to be done. And there are pieces of homework that have to be done every single week. That's just a lot to go through, and this would make my video way longer than normal, which some people might not mind, but I do want to be mindful of your time and go ahead and get you on your way to reading this book. So I'm going to tell you the basic principles that were introduced, which are the morning pages, the artist date, and then I'm going to talk about the contract, the creativity contract, and then I'm going to tell you the different thoughts that developed after reading this book and which weeks stuck out the most and kind of like supports those thoughts forming for me. So let's get right into it. I'm going to start by talking about the morning pages. To give you a sense of what the morning pages are, I'm going to read directly from the section labeled Basic Tools. This is on page 12. Morning pages are non-negotiable. Never skip or skimp on morning pages. I definitely messed up on that part. Your mood doesn't matter. The rotten thing your sensor says doesn't matter. We have this idea that we need to be in the mood to write. We don't. Morning pages will teach you that your mood doesn't really matter. Some of the best creative work gets done on the days when you feel that everything you're doing is just plain junk. The morning pages will teach you to stop judging and just let yourself write. So what if you're tired, crabby, distracted, stressed? Your artist is a child and it needs to be fed. Morning pages feed your artist's child. So write your morning pages. 3 pages of whatever crosses your mind. That's all there is to it. If you can't think of anything to write, then write, I can't think of anything to write. And do this until you filled 3 pages. Do anything until you have filled your 3 pages. So this is the core, or one of the core things that Julia Cameron asks us to do in this book, and that is morning pages. Like I just read, 3 pages of stream of consciousness. Whatever comes to your mind, just let it out. It's not meant to be thought of. It's not meant to plan what you're going to write about. It's just getting in the habit of getting up and essentially brain dumping, or brain drain is what she calls it. Now, this is something that's supposed to be done every single day throughout the course of this book, but also beyond. I'm going to tell you right now, I failed. I did. I think I did good for the first 30 days. And then I started to fall off at 45 days. After 45 days had passed, I think I was doing like 2 or 3 times a week when I felt like it. And then I just stopped doing morning pages altogether. I kind of decided it wasn't for me, which I failed in the morning pages department because, like I just read, the mood that you're in should not matter. It's just getting in the habit of doing it. I do have my version of morning pages where, for me, I think it's more so talking to God and reading my Bible. And then I keep a list of tasks that I want to do where I just kind of brain dump. But that's really not the point. The point is to get all of these thoughts out onto pages. And then I think in week 8 or so is when she asks you to go back and read what you've been writing. And that's when you start to learn something about yourself. Now, I did have a lot of pages to read at the point where it was time to go back and read everything. And I started to notice certain patterns in myself. So it's extremely helpful for noticing, like, what am I complaining about all the time? What am I daydreaming about? What am I repeating? What's missing even? Or if I'm asking a question to God, do I find that the answer writes itself out on the pages? And all of those things come out while writing the morning pages. It's actually really interesting. So it's something that, you know, I'm not supposed to skimp on it, but I did do those things. I did not do the full 3 pages. I said, okay, what if I just do 1 full page, or, you know, a front and a back, and that would be 2 pages. And then the 3 pages I was trying to write, it was like college rule paper, and it was just like, yo, this is a lot. It was a time issue for me, a fear of not having enough time. So I think that is what discouraged me from writing my morning pages. And these are just some things, some reasons why I failed. Maybe these are things that you can take heed of if you decide to partake in this book. But yeah, the morning pages are difficult. It's something that is setting a habit, and she wants you to get in the habit of doing morning pages. But I will tell you, for me personally, it was difficult. Just like I mentioned earlier too in the video, a lack of discipline and laziness on my end is what happened for me. So beware. And I want to share something a little personal about the morning pages. So I mentioned that when you are writing these things, you start to see patterns. You start to notice what you're talking about all the time, what you're dreaming about all the time, and what you're complaining about all the time. And I noticed that for me, I was complaining about one person in particular, and I came to the revelation or resolution, whatever, that maybe it was time to remove this person from my life as a result of writing these morning pages. Because it's, even though nobody else is reading these pages, it's just me and these pages and God, basically, it's still a sense of embarrassment. Like, wow, I've been complaining about this person for a long time and about the same things. And from the date that I wrote it here to the date that I wrote it here, nothing has changed, and I'm still complaining about the same thing. The morning pages really have a way of making you look at yourself, because mostly negativity is going to come out on the pages, which is fine because you need to get it out. Don't hold on to that energy. But you will start to face yourself. If you truly are about improvement, right? You will face yourself. And what I found for me is I had to make a decision. Am I going to keep complaining about this and stay in a situation where nothing is changing? Or am I going to make a decision to change what I'm doing? And in my case, it was removing someone from my life, and that's what happened. And, you know, that's what needed to happen. So the morning pages, it's some bad mama jamma. It's a bad mama jamma. Be warned, be forewarned. But if you do the work, you will see things like that come through in the morning pages. Let me stop rambling about that, and let's get into the next basic tool, which are the artist dates. So the artist date is the second basic tool that you are to do consistently throughout this process. Now, what is an artist date? I'm going to be reading from page 18. An artist date is a block of time, perhaps 2 hours weekly, especially set aside and committed to nurturing your creative consciousness, your inner artist. In its most primary form, the artist date is an excursion, a play date that you pre-plan and defend against all interlopers. You do not take anyone on this artist date, but you and your inner artist, aka your creative child. That means no lovers, friends, spouses, children, no taggers on of any stripe. I did pretty good with the artist dates throughout this whole process, and I actually want to share 3 of my favorite ones that I did for myself. And of course I got my notes right here, but I took myself out to eat to a restaurant I had not been to before. I went to a place called Copeland's. It's like a Louisiana style seafood type of place, and I had some kind of stuffed fish with rice and mashed sweet potatoes, and then I had a cute adult drink. It was in a tall glass. It was a pretty color, but it was kind of like trash because it wasn't that strong. I wanted something stronger. It was pretty watered down, but it was delicious though. So I took myself out to a restaurant and I dressed up and I got cute, and then I took myself out to the movies afterwards, and I saw the movie Him. Very interesting movie, very disturbing, but also makes me think about the industry in the same way that Sinners did. But yeah, Him was an interesting movie. So that was one of my favorite dates that I took myself out on. Another one was when I went to Sweetwater Creek State Park. That's what it was. And I took a short hike, and then I found this rock that was pretty much shaped like a lawn chair in the middle of the rushing water. I had my book with me, not this one, but I had a different book with me, and I stretched out and I read my book. And then there was a point where I got sleepy and I closed my eyes and I took a nap on this rock in the middle of the stream with just the sound of waters rushing around me. And it was just the most relaxing time I have ever had, in a long time. The most relaxing time I had in a long time. So that was another favorite artist date that I took myself on. The first one where I went to the restaurant and the movie, that was probably like 3 or 4 hours of my day. And then the Sweetwater Creek State Park, that was probably at least 4 or 5 hours of my day, probably at least 4 hours. And then another time was I went to Silver Comet Trail, which is like a long bike trail that weaves in and out the city, almost like a Beltline kind of situation, but way more nature than the Beltline. And I walked and jogged, found a nice spot to sit, and I read my Artist Way book. Actually, I did read this book. And then afterwards, I got myself ice cream at Brewster's. So those are my 3 favorite artist dates that I took myself on. Unfortunately, I also failed at keeping up with the artist dates as well. But I don't want to say that I completely failed. I want to say that I need to change how I think about dates in my mind. So The main point that she stresses when it comes to artist dates, when people say date, a lot of times we equate it to an experience that calls for us to spend a lot of money. Artist dates do not have to be expensive. They don't have to cost money at all. When I went to Silver Comet Trail, that was like $8 spent on the ice cream. When I went to Sweetwater Creek, that was $5 for parking. And of course, the most expensive one was when I took myself to the restaurant and went out to the movies and got cute. That was my most expensive. That was probably like $50 or $60 that day. But the artist date does not have to require money. It can just be a time that you set aside for yourself and you decide, I'm gonna do this for a couple hours on this day. Put it on your calendar. Nothing threatens it. Nothing comes in its way. You protect it. That is your time. For me, going in nature is something that is pretty cheap or free. So I like to do that. I like to walk. I like to go to a park. I like to sit in the middle of the water and just listen to the waters rushing, or just explore, new terrain. You could go to the park. You could decide, oh, there's this album that I found that I haven't listened to in a long time. I'm going to have a dance party with myself, or I'm just going to have a jam session with myself if you play instruments, or if you paint, I'm going to just throw something up on a canvas and not care what it looks like or what's happening. It's just alone time with yourself to recalibrate, to pour back into you. And that's the main goal of the artist date, is you are catering to and treating your inner child as if this little child needs attention from you. We are the parents and the child it's all in the same body, right? When we get older, we have to learn to parent ourselves. Some of us, we wanted more attention from our parents. Let's give our inner child the attention that we lacked growing up. And we cannot forget to pay attention to ourselves in general as we get older. Despite what responsibilities come, despite what people enter and exit our lives, we always have to have a time to check in with self. And that's all the artist date is pointing out and encouraging us to do. And then the last thing that was introduced was the creativity contract, which is on page 23. And y'all, I definitely failed at this contract because I did not keep up with morning pages and I did not keep up with the artist date. But I said all that about the artist date to say that anything can be a date. It's just setting aside time where you decide, I'm going to do this and nothing's going to come in the way of that. It doesn't have to involve money. That's what I'm working on for myself, like finalizing that mindset shift of dates having to involve money. But the next part, the contract, it says, I, and you put your name, understand that I am undertaking an intensive guided encounter with my own creativity. I commit myself to the 12-week duration of the course. I did do that. I turned it into 24 weeks, but I did it. I commit to weekly reading, daily morning pages, a weekly artist date, and the fulfillment of each week's tasks. I did, for the most part, keep up with that. I did all my tasks, not the morning pages and the artist date. Not every week, but I did my stuff. I further understand that this course will raise issues and emotions for me to deal with. I commit myself to excellent self-care, adequate sleep, diet, exercise, and pampering for the duration of the course. And I do believe that I was successful in doing that for myself. It changed the relationship, it strengthened the relationship I have with myself. I'm coming out of an era of my life where I am always there for everybody else, but when I need people to show up for me, it's hard to find those support systems around me outside of my parents and God, obviously. I am in a period of time where I am looking for my community, people who are just as supportive to me as I am to them. And so getting better about the relationship I have with myself, it's been an incredible journey. And I've really been making sure I take care of myself and keeping myself a priority, keeping in mind that I want to water people from my overflow, not from my cup. And so I try to keep that in mind. And it's something that's been working very well since the close of this 12-week course for me. So now, as I mentioned earlier, there's just too many weeks to go through and tell you a little piece of every one. So I'm going to tell you 3 main thoughts that developed for me over the course of participating in this experiment and participating in this course. And I'm going to share different sections that reinforce those thoughts that I formed. So the first thought that I have for myself, and this is 3 thoughts. Yes. Okay. The art doesn't have to be good. It just has to be made. And I'm going to read from week 1. and I'm going to read from week 9. So week 1 is recovering a sense of safety, and week 9 is recovering a sense of compassion. So week 1, a sense of safety. One of our chief needs as creative beings is support. Unfortunately, this can be hard to come by, and I just talked about that. They're caught between the dream of action and the fear of failure. Shadow artists are born. That was from page 25, and now page 29. Judging your early artistic efforts is artist abuse. This happens in any number of ways. Beginning work is measured against the masterworks of other artists. Beginning work is exposed to premature criticism, shown to overly critical friends. In short, the fledgling artist behaves with well-practiced masochism. Masochism is an art form long ago mastered, perfected during the years of self-reproach. This habit is the self-hating bludgeon with which a shadow artist can beat himself right back into the shadows. That is powerful. Page 30, and I'm reading from just highlighted parts of the book, just different parts that I've highlighted. This is page 30. It is impossible to get better and look good at the same time. You must be willing to be a bad artist. Give yourself permission to be a beginner. By being willing to be a bad artist, you have a chance to be an artist, and perhaps over time, a very good one. So now I'm going to skip over to week 9, which is recovering a sense of compassion. This is page 151. Being blocked and being lazy are two different things. Page 152 and 153. Fear is the true name for what ails the blocked artist. The need to be a great artist makes it hard to be an artist. The need to produce a great work of art makes it hard to produce any art at all. Do not call procrastination laziness, call it fear. Use love for your artist to cure its fear. Enthusiasm, from the Greek filled with God. Enthusiasm is grounded in play, not work. It's an ongoing energy supply tapped into the flow of life itself. True, our artists may rise at dawn to greet the typewriter or easel in the morning stillness, but this event has more to do with a child's love of secret adventure than with ironclad discipline. What other people may view as discipline is actually a play date that we make with our artist child. I'll meet you at 6 a.m. and we'll goof around with that script, that painting, that sculpture, and I'm going to add this in, we'll goof around with that song, you know? So I'm sharing all of these. That's from week 1, recovering a sense of safety, and week 9, recovering a sense of compassion. That's how I developed the thought, or I got it into my head that the art doesn't have to be good. It just has to be made, because so often artists are the most sensitive people. We're the most critical, and we're always going to be most critical of ourselves. There's not an insult that other people say that we haven't already told ourselves, right? And when I released the pressure of having to make something good every single time I make something, that's when I got to cut loose. To illustrate this a little bit more, I want to share with you how I started rapping. I work as an audio engineer, and a lot of the clients that I would get that the studio sends, that the studio books, they're young guys, much younger than me. They've been rapping for like 3 to 6 months. And you cannot tell them when they walk into that studio, you cannot tell them that they are not the best. You cannot tell them that this song is not a hit. You can't tell them that they're not going to go viral. They are the best. The song, every song they made is a hit, and every song is going to make them go viral, and they're going to make $1 million, and they're going to be so rich and have everything they ever wanted. And I have arguably a bigger skill set than they do, right? I started to wonder, if they can have this much confidence and they're starting with 3 to 6 months of experience, like they don't know anything about music, and they're not clouded, they're not bogged down by all this stuff that I know about the industry, right? But if they can come in here and have this kind of confidence, why can't I do that? And I don't necessarily think their stuff is good, but they're coming in and they're knocking it out, and they're doing it quickly, they're executing. And so from that, and with the text in this book, it changed my mind to say, maybe I don't have to put as much pressure on myself. Maybe I don't have to try as hard. And maybe I'm not having as much fun because I am trying so hard. When some of the best things that I've created have come because I was just saying the first thing that came to my mind, and people gravitated to it more because for some reason I guess they can just feel that energy more. When I'm not thinking about it and I'm just being and I'm just letting it flow, that's the stuff that people gravitate to more. And actually my rap songs have more placements than my R&B records, which is an industry thing, but also I think people just enjoy my raps a lot more. So just wanted to share that with you. The next thought that I developed over the course of this program: my talent is a gift from God, and I want to be fully connected to God for him to use it and let him flow through me. So the different texts that I pulled from for this is going to be week 5, which is recovering a sense of possibility. Week 7, recovering a sense of connection. And then week 12, which is recovering a sense of faith. This is week 5, recovering a sense of possibility. Page 92. One reason we are miserly with ourselves is scarcity thinking. We don't want our luck to run out. We don't want to overspend our spiritual abundance. Again, we are limiting our flow by anthropomorphizing God into a capricious parent figure. These are 2 words I had to look up. Remembering that God is our source and energy flow that likes to extend itself, we become more able to tap our creative power effectively. And now I'm going to go to page 97. An artist requires the upkeep of creative solitude. An artist requires the healing of time alone. Without this period of recharging, our artist becomes depleted. Over time, it becomes something worse than out of sorts. Now let's go into week 7, which is recovering a sense of connection. Pages 118 and 119. We are the instrument more than the author of our work. If painting and sculptures wait for us, then sonatas wait for us. Books, plays, and poems wait for us too. Our job is simply to get them down. To do that, we drop down the well. Some people find it easier to picture the stream of inspiration as being like radio waves of all sorts being broadcast at all times. With practice, we learn how to hear the desired frequency on request. We tune into the frequency we want. Once you accept that it is natural to create, you can begin to accept a second idea, that the creator will hand you whatever you need for the project. The minute you are willing to accept the help of this collaborator, you will see useful bits of help everywhere in your life. This voice frequently shows itself in synchronicity. Page 120. Let go and call it done. A normal part of creativity, letting go. Page 121. In order to do something well, we must first be willing to do it badly. Page 124. Jealousy strips us of our will to act when action holds the key to our freedom. Going into week 12, page 193. Creativity requires faith. Faith requires that we relinquish control. And then page 199. In order to achieve escape velocity, we must learn to keep our own counsel, to move silently among doubters, to voice our plans only among our allies, and to name our allies accurately. And then next to that, I put discernment. So I just highlighted it and I put brackets and put discernment. So all of that contributed to my thought of my talent is a gift from God, and I want to be fully connected to God for him to use that talent and let him flow through me. My motto for 2026 is to love like God. And I've really been doing a better job over the past few months over the past couple years of just getting closer to God and recognizing when I'm kind of straying and I'm not doing what I should do as far as checking in with him or reading my Bible every day or praying or just talking to him every day. Once I got it through my head that I did not get these God-given talents for no reason and that it flows and I feel better when I have a connection to God, there's more peace that's come over me. And I don't understand it. And I'm not supposed to lean on my own understanding, but there is such a peace that has come with connecting with God and relying on him as part of my strategy for success. And I found that I'm more calm. And because I'm more calm, I create more easily. I take the pressure off of myself. I hear some of my friends say like they're on a particular discipline of, I got to make 20 beats a day or I got to make 5 beats a day. I gotta make 50 beats a week, and every single day I need to be in the studio. And I applaud them for that. I commend them for that. That is not for me. I have always believed that in order to have some kind of inspiration, I don't want to be locked away in a room all day where I can't tell when the sun is up or down. I don't know what time it is. I don't feel what's going on outside. I don't know what's going on outside because I'm trapped in a box. In most studios, it's a dark room. There's artificial lighting, and I'm supposed to feel creative in this space day in and day out. I just don't. I need to live. I need to see the world. And then whatever I'm inspired by from the world, I bring it back into the studio and I put my experiences I put it on wax. I put it, into a song. So I don't like the pressure of having to have a regimen anymore. I used to, because I'm an Army brat, and order is definitely something that I'm used to. But when it comes to music, it truly is more of a spiritual experience. And to be able to create more easily that connection with God, or if y'all don't believe in God, that connection to a higher source or source energy, you got to be able to tap into that. And things become so much more easy when you do. And the last thought that I developed while going through this program is the thought that I'm okay. This is a big one. I am okay with never being famous as long as I am successful at what I do. And the main part, my favorite part in this book that got me to this way of thinking, is week 10, recovering a sense of self-protection. This is page 171, and it's the entire section on fame. And I'm just going to read the entire section because it's pretty powerful. It's pretty powerful. And this is just reframing why I create and releasing myself from the pressure of being famous versus being successful. So, fame encourages us to believe that if it hasn't happened yet, it won't happen. Of course, it is fame. Fame is not the same as success. In our true souls, we know that. We know and have felt success at the end of a good day's work. But fame, it's addictive, and it always leaves us hungry. Fame is a spiritual drug. It's often a byproduct of our artistic work, but like nuclear waste, it can be a very dangerous byproduct. Fame, the desire to attain it, the desire to hold on to it, can produce the "how am I doing" syndrome. This question is not, is the work going well? This question is, how does it look to them? The point of the work is the work. Fame interferes with that perception. Instead of being about acting, it becomes about being a famous actor. Instead of writing being about writing, it becomes about being recognized, not just published. We all like credit where credit is due. As artists, we don't always get that credit. Yet focusing on fame, on whether we are getting enough, creates a continual feeling of lack. There's never enough of the fame drug. Wanting more will always snap at our heels, discredit our accomplishments, erode our joy at another's accomplishment. To test this, read any of the many fan magazines, People for instance, and see if afterward your life somehow feels more shabby, less worthwhile. This is the fame drug at work. Remember, treating yourself like a precious object will make you strong. When you've been toxified by the fame drug, you need to detox by coddling yourself. What's in order here is a great deal of gentleness and some behavior that makes you like yourself. Sending postcards is a great trick. Mail one to yourself that says you are doing great. It is very nice to get fan letters from ourselves. In the long run, fan letters from ourselves and our creative self are what we are really after. Fame is really a shortcut for self-approval. Try approving of yourself just as you are and spoiling yourself rotten with small kids' pleasures. What we are really scared of is that without fame, we won't be loved as artists or as people. The solution to this fear is concrete, small, loving actions. We must actively, consciously, consistently, and creatively nurture our artist selves. When the fame drug hits, go to your easel, your typewriter, your camera, or your clay. Some of us, it's the studio. Pick up the tools of your work and begin to do just a little creative play. Soon, very soon, the fame drug should start to lessen its hold. The only cure for the fame drug is creative endeavor. Only when we are being joyfully creative can we release the obsession with others and how they are doing. And that part, ooh, that part is so good. That part is so good. That was a weird sound. But seriously, like, what are you doing it for? And if you're doing it because you want recognition from other people, then I don't think you love it as much as you say you do. Because if you loved it, you would do it for the sake of doing it. Not for who's going to recognize you, not for how much money you can get. Things that we do to make money, it has its place in our life. But things that we do for the joy of it, that is where it's at. And unfortunately, and I'm going to do a video like this shortly on my channel, my LexC solo channel, which is Education for Artists. It's some people, we are getting paid for our creativity, so it becomes a little muddled how we think about it. But truly, why are you doing it? And understanding, like, do you value other people's recognition more than you value that this is something that you love? This is something that you want to do because it brings you joy. And once I got that through my mind, man, was I freed. Like, I really believe that as artists, we should always start from making something that we like, making something that we want to make. The cherry on top is when other people praise us and say, wow, that looks great. That sounds great. That's amazing. But the accomplishment comes in doing the thing. The accomplishment comes in creating it and making it exist. Once you've made it exist, like, you're successful. You successfully did this thing. And we may not like the scale at which we're receiving recognition, or for those who aren't sharing their art at all, you're not getting any recognition, but you're just seeing that you've made all these things and you might want the next step, and you might be wondering, what is that next step? Which is often recognition from others, from our peers. But really, if we can just get it through our minds that we can create art for the sake of creating art, it doesn't have to be good or bad, and it doesn't matter what your art is, just create. When we create it for ourselves and not for the validation from others, we get to a dangerous level of peace. Life is better that way, when we're just doing it because we enjoy it and because it's what we like and what we want to see. If others appreciate it, that's the cherry on top, but it should never be the main motivation. All right, so that is my book review of The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. I did not mean for it to be this long, but I just had to rave about this book. It is quite lengthy, and there's a lot of value in it, and a lot of exercises and tasks to do every week. And you know, this was just not going to fit in my regular 20 to 30 minute format for my book reviews. So I would highly recommend that you read this book, especially if you are a creative. And I've actually gifted this book to, I think, 3 of my friends. I know for sure I sent it to Maurice Beats and Steph C. Baby. I forget who the other person is, but I've sent at least two of these books to people. So I would highly recommend that you read it. I really enjoyed it. And at the end of this journey, I feel more creative. I feel more at peace, and I feel happier with the process of creating because the pressure has been taken off. And I feel closer to God because I have been putting in the work of, like I said, reading my Bible and talking to God every day and tapping into Him. Tapping into God has truly, I think, elevated my creativity as well. Tapping into that source. So highly recommend it. Let me know in the comment section if you would read this book, if you're going to read it, or comment another book that you think I should check out. And actually, the next book that I'm reading is Good Leaders Ask Great Questions by John C. Maxwell. Let me know in the comments what other book you think I should check out, and I'll get to it, and you might see a review for it very, very soon. But make sure you like this video. Make sure you comment, thumbs up, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you'll be notified each and every time I post a new piece of content. And I thank you so much for joining me for this book review of The Artist's Way, A Spiritual Path to Higher Creativity by Julia Cameron, 30th Anniversary Edition. My name is LexC. Until next time, peace.
But when I think back on my journey, I know God'll make it all worth it. Had to step back from trying to be perfect. Let my talent speak and keep working. That's my truth. He never told no lie. He never told no lie. Just gotta keep working.